We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity with Police and Law Enforcement. And today we're going to be doing the connecting into the podcast within Voices of Integrity podcast for marriages. So obviously, a lot of people in law enforcement, most people, most police officers are going to be, married, right? And so being married, if you're a police officer, if you're a police officer, you're married, your spouse is not in law enforcement, not a police officer in law enforcement, it's different, right? Like, do they understand what you're going through on a daily basis? Maybe not. Do you understand what they're going through on a daily basis? Maybe not. And so there's an entire series on Voices of Integrity podcast for marriages. And so I definitely have you look into this, for sure, because there's some really great material in here, for marriages, for hurt and healing, what is an ideal husband? Like there's some great stuff in here. TJJS, Tarzan Jane Jungle Sex, communications. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Definitely register for the register for the mobile app. Don't be a spectator in this podcast. And then get your spouse, your husband or wife, get your spouse involved. So, it's a delicate subject in the law enforcement, I think, world. There's so much, there's so many challenges, so much stress. It's insane. And so going into this, I think this will be good. I think one of the difficulties is that, I had a friend and her name was Amy Xi, and she was from China. And so for the first 3 months, her and I, we became friends and did a bunch of stuff together in the business world and, even, in the community world. And for the first 3 months, I pretty much told her everything that she wanted to hear. And she liked me like crazy. Oh, man, did she like me? When she'd introduced me to all her Chinese friends, she says, Mark is the smartest American I've ever met. Now, when she introduced another American, she'd say that person was the smartest too. But anyways, she really liked me for 3 months until I told her something that she did not like hearing. And boy, did she get ticked. Wow, was she mad. She's like all huffy. She's like, Mark, you don't understand Chinese. She was just, and I started laughing because of my, social autism. I started laughing. I said, Amy, what's interesting is that, when I was over in, Africa, they said, you don't understand Africans. When I was over in Russia, you don't understand Russia. When I was over in, Egypt, they're like, you don't understand Egyptian. My wife said, you don't understand women. My kids said, you don't understand. Like everybody's saying, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't. Like that's what everybody is. It's just, you don't understand. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying that if we think people, don't understand, and we can't learn anything from them. Think about it. Just think about it. If you dismiss somebody, say, you don't understand. Okay. You're just dismissing them. You're saying, well, you can't help me because you don't understand me. And what we're really saying is my life is tougher than yours. That's what we're saying. Like we're saying, my life is tougher than yours. You don't understand. Like, Mark, are you a police officer? I am not. You don't understand. You don't understand the pressures. Really? I'm just curious, let's challenge each other a little bit. Right? Like police officers, man, they like to be challenged, right? Right? You like a good challenge? Like, hey, let's go ahead and do this. Like, what's the statistical probability you're going to get divorced? No, as a police officer, what's the statistical like, let's look at math, right? Let's go ahead and take this bad boy and say, what's the statistical probability you're going to go ahead and get divorced? I don't actually know what it is. That'd be a great number to know, right? So, you know what the statistical probability for my wife and I to be divorced? It's over 85%. I'm just saying, it's over 85%. The things that she and I have been through together, it's insane. Like, we were in marriage counseling. We've been married now coming up on 40 years. I'm 60, she's 59. We're married when she was 19, I was 20. The things we went through right before we got married, like her dad sexually abusing her when we were engaged. What a great way to start out a marriage. Like, whoa, that's above my pay grade when I found out that, you know, wow. Like, and he's still alive today. Man, was that tough. Still tough, um, in some ways. There's still scars, there's still stuff that's there. And then, 7 kids. But the thing that, pushed it over the tipping point was, a little over 3 years ago, coming up on 4 years now, this summer, June 17th. Our oldest son, who is 30, committed suicide. Rifle shot to the head. Our 19-year-old son was in the room when it happened. I'm telling you. I'm just telling you. Like, man, oh man. So yeah, we talked to a number of people and found out that, yeah, when you have a suicide, one of your kids commits suicide, you get an 85% chance of divorce. And we went through and made it through the first year, and that was not easy. I told her at the end of the first year, I said, I think year 2 is going to be harder than year 1. And it was. Year 3 was, I don't know. We're going into year 4 now. It's like, and so, you know, so we all have different stuff, like, right? I mean, there's stuff. And so we all have stuff. And so, in the, Voices of Integrity for Marriages, my wife and I, host that together. And, we love your feedback. Our trauma is not worse than yours. Is it any harder for us in marriage than it's different, right? So in a way we can't understand each other. You can't understand what I've been through. I can't understand what you've been through, but together we can accomplish a lot more. Like, there's perspectives. My dad, he was he's a pastor, so I was involved in marriage counseling from a very young age, counseling others, and and definitely join the Life GPS mobile app. Don't be a spectator, be a participant in it. He joined that, and then somebody from this group for police and law enforcement, they'll go ahead and they'll introduce you to somebody else in the group, and then they'll help you get the most out of the group. You help them, they help you. It's pretty cool. And so, once when I was, I don't know, probably in my 30s, early 30s or so, the pastor of the church that that took over for my dad, he asked me if I'd be willing to go out, because there was a new couple coming to the church. I hadn't met them yet, and they were they were having marriage issues, and it could be divorce right there. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. I said, well, would you like me to cover? And, like, well, they're having financial issues. I said, okay, I can do that. And so we went out there, and so I've been blessed to be an international speaker and author. So I've traveled all around the world, writing my 18th book now, titled Clean Windows: Learning to See Things We Can't See. And so we went and met the couple and sat down, and then, you know, Dale Williams, the pastor, he said, "Hey, maybe Mark, before you talk about the financial stuff, maybe you can talk about personalities. Like Mark speaks all over the world and written extensive on personalities." And I'm like, "Sure, absolutely." So I asked him, which of these four shapes would you tend to like the most? 1, 2, 3, and 4. And which of these four things would cause you the most frustration, in any area of your life? 1, 2, 3, and 4, out of order, out of control, bringing up conflict. That's 17 seconds. It'll tell you what the personality is. So I asked the husband it, and then I asked the wife it. And so we tend to like other people who are like us. We tend to fall in love with people who are opposite. And so once you identify one personality, you have a pretty good idea of who their spouse is, probably. And once you identify their personality, their strengths, weaknesses, what they like, what they don't, turns them on, turns them off, if they're married, who's married to, conflict marriage, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. You know more about them in 17 seconds, literally, than they know about you. Jim Bontrager, he's a chaplain for police, and he called me once, and he said, "Hey, Mark, I'm meeting with a couple, and they're struggling in their marriage, and so I was just wondering if you could do your stuff on them, the personality." I'm like, "Sure." And Jim came back and said later, he's like, "It was crazy. Like, it was absolutely crazy." Anyways, going back to the couple at the church, so I told him everything. I said, "Well, this probably, I don't know you or anything, and this probably, where you guys struggle, and communication and intimacy, and, and finances based on your personality." And I just laid it all out, and their mouths just dropped and said, "That is insane." When we left that house that night, Dale Williams went ahead and got outside. He says, "Mark, I've never seen anything like that before." He said, "I've been through a lot of marriage counseling." He said, "I have to be honest with you. I was a little cynical about, the personality stuff. But I'm a believer now." He's like, "That's just amazing." He says, it's not that you told them stuff that probably other marriage counselors haven't told them, but you told them that without knowing anything about them, without asking any questions, just from the personalities. Life Masteries Institute, a wonderful nonprofit organization. I do volunteer work, have for years with them. They had a couple out on the East Coast, and they were running into marriage, challenges. And so they went ahead and introduced me to them and said, "Hey, Mark, could you do something?" I said, "Sure." So I did 2 1-hour sessions with him. First one, I got to know him, went through everything, and it's like, whoa. The husband was at a 2 on the marriage, 1 to 10. So 1 to 10, how would you rate your marriage? And then what would you like it to be? And then asked the wife, and he said a 2, and he'd like to be a 10. She said a 1, and she wanted it to be a 10. So they both had hope. That second number is really important. The second number reveals hope. I had one woman, guys, you don't want this to be your wife. I'm just saying, poor lady. Seriously. I asked her, I said, 1 to 10, how'd you rate your marriage? She says a 1. And I said, "Okay. And what would you like it to be?" And she said a 10 with another man. I'm like, whoa, this is not good. Like, whoa. I said, "Do you have that other man in your life?" And she's like, "I actually don't." I'm like, boy, he better get his act together, right? So I had, and so husband was a 2 and want to be a 10, wife was a 1, want to be a 10. After 2 1-hour sessions, they went from a 1 and a 2 up to an 8 and a 9. So it's an understanding. It's an understanding of how our spouse is wired. Like when we understand, so I'm a driver analytic. My wife is a double amiable, some analytic, some expressive, but mostly double amiable. And man, the first 2 years of our marriage, it was brutal. Wow. The things that attracted me to her was she was super nice. I'm like, man, she's gonna make a nice wife, and she's gonna make an amazing mom. I mean, I was in love with her first time I saw her. Could just tell, just the energy, just everything. She fell in love with me, and man, this guy, he's gonna be a protector. One, he's gonna protect me from my dad, and the abuse, which I did. Found out, put a stop to that bad boy, and cut that thing, nailed it. But he's going to be a provider. He's going to be a protector. He's going to be driven. He knows what he wants in life. He's going after it. So we come together and we get married, and the very things that draw us together are very things that push us apart. And so, she's late for everything. We get married. Like, that's a moral issue for a driver. Like, you don't be late. She's late all the time. Um, you know, and she lets people take advantage of her, like the kids. I know there's 7 of them, but you don't. I mean, you're the mom. Like, we're the parents. You don't let them take advantage of you. Like, what's wrong with that story? But she does. So it's just irritating and frustrating, and she lies to me. She doesn't think of it as lying. Even she thinks of it as being nice, and I'm like, how is not telling me the truth lying? Well, I didn't want to make you mad. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I didn't want the kids to be in trouble. Like, it's still lying. Like, hello, what does she look at me after we get married? He's a jerk. He doesn't care. Like, all he cares about is the goals. All he cares about is this and this and this. He's too direct. He's too mean. He's not nice at all. So the very things that draw us together are very things that push us apart. If you're a wavy line, probably you're going to marry an analytic. You might be a third or last born, and your spouse probably going to be a firstborn. And so, you're going to love each other because the analytic is going to love the expressive because they actually have friends like outgoing, and they party and they're fun and all this kind of stuff until they get married. And then, the expressive wants to go out to parties and be with people, and the analytic wants to stay home. When they're dating and engaged, the expressive just loves the analytic because, they actually know how to balance a checkbook. They actually know how to manage money. They're actually disciplined and organized, and they actually know what they're doing until they get married. And then it's like so irritating. Like, it's so irritating because it's like, do you not have any fun? You're so rigid. So the very things that draw us together, very things that push us apart. Now, you might be married to the same type of person as you, personality as you. You think that's going to work good. It doesn't. It works terrible. Like, it's just as bad as the other. It's just as hard. If you have expressives that get married, man, that's going to be a fun marriage. Like, a lot of fun. Who's going to balance the checkbook? Who's going to do all the things that, require all the details and the attention to details? It's like, we can't just have fun. So if you marry somebody like you, well, that's going to be hard. If you marry somebody opposite, that's going to be hard too. Like, it's just, marriage is just challenging, right? And so there's a lot of resources in this podcast. Hopefully this has given you kind of an overview. I'd encourage you to, participate. You can participate in either of these, live. Kenny and I love to have guests and people join us and stuff like that. So if you'd like to be a guest and just kind of sit on the live and just sit there, you can do that. If you'd like to go ahead and participate, you can do that as well. Kenny, any questions or thoughts that you have for marriages and police and law enforcement?
I'm just curious. Like, is there possible, like, if you're having a car, if you have a car driving the engine, it's there are certain steps you can take in order, just like you can keep it serviced, updated in order to keep the engine from blowing up. But then there's also small warnings in place to where you know that it might blow up before it does. Like, if how does that relate to marriage, and how can you see some of those signs before it blows up,
Right,
before it's too late?
right. Well, you're an expressive, so you actually like when things blow up. I mean, that creates, energy and excitement and enthusiasm. Um, Sorry, not picking on the expressive. So for me, um, we didn't start at year one, but we started at, I don't know, 5, 6 years into our marriage. Sometime we started pretty early into our marriage where we had date nights every Friday night. And it was I mean, sometimes a date night was ordering a pizza with all the 7 of the kids and put them to bed. And then we had a date night pizza and a movie at home, rented a movie. That might have been our date night, but we always had date nights. Kids always knew date nights is date nights is date nights. You don't bother mom and dad on a date night. So I think the consistency, um, is really, really important. Um, my mom went ahead and gave me the secret to women when I was 9 years old. So I'm a driver analytic, and so I'm a stereotypical man. just just him. Like, bottom line, I think you're stupid. I'm going to tell you you're stupid. I mean, the there are a number of people that have said to my wife, your husband is, I don't know, mentally abusive to you or verbally abusive to you. It's like, okay, that's one way to think about it. Um, And so I'm stereotypical. I mean, man, I mean, it's just like there's just, this is what it is, bottom line, black and white. This is what it is. We have a plan, follow plan. What about people being happy? You know what? Follow plan, do what you're supposed to do, you'll be happy. So I'm very stereotypical male. That's the personality. This is what I am. But my mom, I don't know. She was just brilliant, maybe. I don't know what it was, but I remember, I don't know what it was, like 9 years old. I went ahead and found out my mom and my mom and dad were pastors. And so they didn't have a lot of money and they very frugal people. And so my mom loved sour cream and onion potato chips. And, I knew she'd never buy them. So I have a paper route, I earn money and I have a paper route, I'm earning money. And I go ahead and, one day, I had some of my own money and I bought some sour cream and onion potato chips and brought them home. No big deal, right? I mean, she does so much for me. Like, hello, like so much for me. So I walk in the kitchen. I never forget it. It's funny. Never forget it. Walk into the kitchen and I just like my little 9-year-old boy, I can say, "Hey, mom, here's some sour cream and onion potato chips for you." And she just looked at me and she started crying. And I remember thinking at the time, man, women are weird. like, hello, like, why are you crying? But I could tell, like, I could feel her heart. And she kneeled down to me. She kneeled down and looked right in my eyes. And she said, "Mark, you're going to make some woman the most amazing husband in the world because you're so sensitive to women." So, there would be a lot of women, maybe my 4 daughters. So 7 kids, 3 boys, 4 girls, my daughters. My dad, like if you ask people that really knew me well, like what are some words that come to mind when you meet Mark? What are some common words? Sensitive would not be one of the top 1,000. Like it's just not. But my mom kind of, and I remember when she's crying and tears are flowing down, and she's like, it meant so much to her. And then I thought, I mean, women are weird, yes, but they're not that complicated, guys. I mean, I'm telling you, they're not. When I say that, I mean, I've been married to my wife for 39 years. Once, as soon as I get her figured out, she shifts on me. I'm like, doggone it. Like, but I like a challenge, right? Like, I like a challenge. So, okay, where is she coming from now? And so I realized like women are not that complicated. I'm like, just be sensitive, for crying out loud. Like, touch their heart. Women, I think, are a lot more patient than men, honestly. Men expect results. Like, expect a meal, expect this, expect the kids, expect great sex, expect a lot of things from women. And generally speaking, they're, I think, more black and white. Like, it's either great or it's not. You either do it or you don't. Women, it's weird. It's cool. It's really cool. Where women, it's like you don't have to succeed with them. You just have to show effort. You have to be aware of where they're at, and then you have to show effort. That's been my experience. My experience with my mom, my 2 sisters, my 4 daughters, my 5 granddaughters, and pretty much every other woman I've ever met. Just be sensitive. And then, you know, don't go ahead and be a wuss. I'm just saying. Like, don't be entitled. Don't be self-righteous, and don't be a victim. How do you prevent entitlement? It's through thankfulness. How do you prevent self-righteousness? It's through humility. How do you prevent being a victim? It's through ownership. And we in law enforcement, like we can be entitled and self-righteous and victims. Think about it. Just like we're entitled because we put our lives on the line every single day. We made the choice. Like it's a choice we made. Yes, it's amazing. I have a number of friends who are, and over the years have been police officers. And, I have a cousin who was killed in the line of duty, or a cousin's son who was killed in the line of duty out in New York. But we can be entitled. we can be self-righteous. Like, I knew one police officer, he always sped. I'm like, you're speeding. And it's like, well, the laws don't apply to me. Really? Like, really? Is that? And I'm not judging. I'm just saying that we can be, and we can be victims. We can be like, everybody's picking on us. And it's like, well, that's I'm not saying, especially in today's culture, but are we taking ownership for, other, in our profession, and the people who make really stupid choices in law enforcement? So again, as a wife, she married you, if she married you knowing you were going to be a police officer, that's just a special woman. It just is. And so I just have so much respect for, women who are, wives of police officers. I can't even imagine what it would be like, I can't even imagine what it'd be like not know if your husband's coming home at night, like every night. Like, how does she handle that stress? And so I think, Kenny, it's getting some disciplines down, date nights, weekly date nights for sure. Like, that's maintenance. You don't get fire insurance, after the fire burns down your house. You don't get marriage, like going to marriage retreats. My wife and I have done that over the years. Don't be proudful and arrogant. You got issues with your marriage, get help. I'm just saying, just get help. Get help sooner, faster. Going through that. I think that's really important. Um,
Yeah, that makes
1 to
sense.
10, like over the years, I've asked my wife, 1 to 10, how would you rate, how would you rate our marriage? And I ask her, what do you like most about it? So I study her. What does she like most about it? What could be improved to get to a 10? 1 to 10, how am I doing as a husband? And so, and then what does she like most about me as a husband, and what can be improved? So I am studying her response to me, and I'm looking at altering, doing little things. Like, some of the stories, we could do it on another podcast. Some of the stories of some of the just weird, things that absolutely trigger her heart. I mean, and it's just women. I mean, you do these little cute things that are weird, and the guys will say, Really, you didn't do it?" Like, they'll give you a hard time, but they're jealous, and they don't want their wives, and their wives will find out, and they don't want their wives because they don't want to step up and be the husband that you are. So, I think probably another session on that, Kenny, would probably be good. 'Cause you're absolutely right. It's like a car. It just is. So there's maintenance that you can do, keep up on the maintenance. There's warning signs that you can have, when you go through communications and all of those type of things. There's stuff there. So there's a bunch of things that you can do, and it's a great question, good insight. Does that help, Kenny, or maybe not so much?
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else you got, sir?
Nope. That's all I got.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, again, get engaged. Don't be a spectator, be a participant for sure. Get your spouse involved, get your kids involved. Like, there's some cool things. Like, there really are some cool things that, for families and marriages that can be done for sure. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the US, 630-393-9909. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.